What's happening? Greetings. Fresh out the shower, ashy looking ass. Nah, let's give an honest and sore. Boy, you can look. This how it's not what they call a dark spot. No, this is how much I'm in need of sun. You won't get it though. But anywho, let's give an honest and source of the Creator Most High, making all this possible. I kind of wanted to just come here and to really talk about something real brief, a little message. Give an honor to the ancestors known and unknown, for the highest good of all. Supposed to be multitasking here, but man, I forgot Don. Is his name Don Tripp? This song called "Encouraging Words." Bro, it just gave me so much insight on the fact of like the simplest things in life. Like, everyone's not meant to be an entrepreneur. Let me tell you from experience. Everyone's not mentally, emotionally prepared to go through the process of the integrity, the emotions, the process of, if you want to call it, like, you have a stream of income, whether it's low or high, but the process of that shit, and then putting so much energy into it, with the fact of, like, not to mention, like, seeing people fall away during that process. It's nothing against people who do 9 to 5s or anything else. That vision, bro. As I'm saying this, I'm just reflecting the fact of being in a shelter where this sister was actually the sister was actually I don't want to stress that. The sister was actually what is her name? This elder that was in there. She was just such a beacon of light. Such a beacon of light. It's such a dark space. Like, in the shelter, it's such a dark space. Like, man, she was, I reflected because I remember her putting on the door of the room that we had at that time in the shelter. She would have these encouraging messages, like typed and written out and printed. And she would have these messages and stuff like printed, like on, little papers and stuff. And I just remember specifically, I gotta put on my shea butter, y'all. Y'all give me a moment. Ooh, I feel so much better. That's shea butter. Oh, I feel so much better putting that on. Ooh. Take care of yourself, love on yourself. Gotta go back downstairs and prep these potatoes. But anywho, what I was saying is, like, I was grateful that this sister, this elder that was there, like, everything's so fucking aligned. Every time I just try to think about how certain things aren't where I'm supposed to be, or this is supposed to happen, this kind of ties into where, again, the song I was just listening to by Don Tripp, the encouraging words about, like, how you got to get up off your ass and do certain stuff. Steps is not comfortable. How you got to get up off your ass and do stuff, because it's a lot of stuff is like, there are no handouts. And I started to have to accept this path more and more as I gradually stepped into, like, my own independence, interdependence, sovereignty, confidence, rebuilding myself, like my identity and so forth. And I was so grateful during those moments, reflecting in the shelter and all those things, because there was a balance and a duality between people that I was meeting that were great. Everyone was great. Everyone was amazing. It was just the fact of so much energetically fucking happening, bro. Like, and I realized as you progress and move forward in life and actually do like what, I'll talk about like the shadow work, facing yourself, do things as such, like facing your own subconscious fears, breaking generational patterns and cycles, you start to realize like it's so worth it. There are things where I could have done completely, could have just given up. And again, there were moments where just certain people or certain energies, certain things present that wanted me to derail everything. You wouldn't see my masterpieces. You wouldn't see none of the things I would create and had I not told myself that pouring into my inner child, showing up for myself, is much more vital than trying to prove to anyone else outside of me or anything that I am lovable, have to be accepted, I am brilliant, just anything to try to justify my existence or my being. So one thing that was really a balance was the therapist that they had there. It was a lot of support, but again, there was a duality where it revealed people as you step into your power, as you gradually, just be who you are naturally. What is that saying that sister said? She was like, when people use that term, the truth comes to the light, it's very significant because you are the truth. When you live in the vibration of authenticity and truth, it will reveal itself. Isn't that wild? So that's the deep acceptance to where I had to learn even not to attach myself to not even just outcomes, but even hold a higher standard to people's expectations of me being exactly what they wanted me to be without me trying to be who I am or me being myself. So it's like that's unrealistic to me. It's like I had to, at any moment, something may come up, something may happen. I have to tell myself, like, hold on, pause. Like, you have to process this. You have to navigate this. You have to now show up for yourself completely different than you would someone else. And then, delayed process, is it delayed process or prolonged grief? Just delayed processing of even the fact of how things have transpired, how they've unfolded. And then now you have to move completely different. And that can be very uncomfortable, I've noticed, because even in the fact of like one thing about the shelter is such a vulnerable place. A lot of these places are like anything that represents a home is very vulnerable for a lot of people. Man, I'm telling you, in those experiences, I never really went into a lot of detail about it. But you had people who literally, because it was a shelter and it actually was a home for some people, and that's all they had. And it's wild because the mental state of some people who don't see anything outside of that. The mental state of, and this is not to even portray any sense of like trying to devalue someone. It's like now I get a deeper compassion and empathy, and, from compassion or sympathy from a distance, but compassion that I really start to recognize the deep state that people were in, like the deep psychosis sometimes, the deep, you have people who were really dealing with mental things, drugs. Recently, I talked to someone who, I connected there, who was a great support, that was, he was a worker there, and he just like informed me like someone like literally overdosed, and he had to be a part of like their recovery of like them basically like returning back to life. And I was like, yo, I've been in that position. Like I've experienced that with someone or in the environments, like similarly to like living in a hotel. It was wild because what it does is it just highlights the state of humanity, the collective, the individuals who let me go get this stuff prepared. like who really are going through something and actually like the part of like cycle breaking. Like a lot of people don't realize like it's deep. Like me choosing not to do drugs or me choosing not to engage in certain things is a part of me realizing like I'm doing better. I'm being better. Now, that doesn't make me more valuable than anyone, but that makes me my standards and what I value like in a more authentic or integrative way, or how to say, just in a healthy, let's just say in a holistic way, rather than something that I've seen before with other people who would choose differently. Oh shit. So again, for the most part, being surrounded by that, it was a lot. It was a lot because being surrounded in environments with energies and such like that, it can be very challenging because you can be easily, it's like peer pressure. It's like being in school or somewhere else. These are places that where, you know, at a time they're trying to process like, is this my all be all? No, I tell you, I still have to create. I still have to do a lot of things to like make sure that I wouldn't lose myself, or like, and even in losing myself, it's like I had to remain grounded. And it was, bro, that shit was tough. I don't think I ever talked about this on the video, but that shit was rough. Because you're around so many people, and a lot of people don't realize, like, in such a vulnerable state, a lot of people, let me do this first, cuz I'm gonna try to balance this out. In such a vulnerable state right now, with a lot of people going through like so many different transitions in life and experiencing so much, it's a lot for people to try to process the fact of even being in there. That was one thing for me, processing the fact of like trying to manage the fact of what am I going to do. And sometimes, you know, you're not in the best head space, mental space, emotional space. You're trying to purge. You're trying to process the fact of how did I even get here, without trying to point the finger at, you know, your partner or whomever you're with, trying to show up for yourself with kids, having to be in at a certain time. What was it? Like you had to be in at like 9 o'clock. Certain things where you couldn't bring in certain foods. It was a lot of shit. Like, so, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I had to sneak stuff in because it was the environment of people cooking for you. And then I didn't eat meat. We didn't eat meat, so they served a lot of meat. They served a lot of stuff that was either donated. People came in. It was different. Like it was different, and it's like, it was so, oh my gosh, y'all have no idea. This shit was like a mental asylum now that I think about it. Like you had people from all walks of life in that shelter. Only thing people don't realize, like, and it was a family shelter, so you had people that single mothers, single fathers. What else was coming up? It was so many different things where y'all had to realize, like, y'all don't know the backstory to me, why I'm so confident, so encouraged to create my art, to focus on just the bigger picture, creating the books and that shit. Oh my God, like y'all don't realize, like a lot of stuff I wasn't at the. Then my partner, the mother of my children, we were, you know, she was trying to process the fact of her mother not being in the best health. Us navigating the fact of trying to process this, you know, imagine saving up money and then you're trying to go through these things and you're trying to, you know, mentally process the fact of everything not being perfect, or it you know, you don't want to lie to yourself and or your children. So it's like real raw shit. It's like these situations really bring out the most uncomfortable emotions, or the whatever's repressed and suppressed, so much to where, let's say, like, even the fact of, like, us being even a family in there, like, there was a lot of stuff that how people just seem, oh, y'all don't look like y'all belong in. I'm like, what is homelessness, or what is something supposed to look like? It was wow in there, bro. The energy was wow, like so low vibrational, meaning like you can just tell. When I say in a vulnerable state, when I say low vibrational, I mean in a way of like entity, like in a way of like people being at a place of a lower nature, to where it's not, again, it's not, this is not to make people seem less valuable or not important, none of that. It's the fact of, it's just people who recognize what I'm saying on a spiritual level or frequency level, where people don't see beyond, they don't see that they can evolve past what they're going through. And then even the mindsets, like me talking about things that I'm going through, and then having such a counterproductive mind, like countering my thoughts, and then even encouraging people there, supporting them in certain ways. It was so many different things to where still, when you're in tune or spiritually in tune, you still got to protect yourself in such fucking vulnerable places. It was such like a high school, to where, what I mean by like the peer pressure around people pleasing, oh my gosh, the disease, the what do they call that thing? I knew nothing about hand and foot mouth disease. Like, kids could get, they had a daycare in there, like a part of the shelter. This was based in Ohio, by the way, like Columbus, Ohio. And again, it was just the fact of, not even just that, man, like, I could write a book on this. It ain't even just a book. It was just a fact of, like, so many different things, to where dealing with the staff, from transitioning from an experience of, like, that shit seemed like jail, bro. Like, that shit seemed like a jail, because before the family shelter, you go into a shelter space of emergency shelter and stuff like that, where you go through this process of getting a room, and you're all in one room. But then they have people all on what they call the floor. And again, these are people who, this is all of their belongings. They have everything, like, not to mention, like, you have people, let me see how warm it is outside. You have people that, like, have probably been there, like, oh yeah, okay then. So you have people, like, who have been there, like, you have people that, like, have been there, like, a few times, like, repeated. You have people that, like, it's so many different things, like, oh my gosh, just reflecting on that, like, you have people that have been there multiple times. And for me, I start to recognize, like, yo, this has to be a mindset, or this has to be, when I start to really dive deep into generational patterns and cycles, I was like, bro, this has to be things that people generationally are asked to evolve, or asked to look at differently. Because a lot of things we're not, like, so much of, I feel like our parents are, not to say they went through the same thing, but some of them have, to where I can see why they will hold on so much to what they built, and don't want to let someone, like, destroy it. Or some of them have so much of attachment to, like, working through things, and that's a part of their generational cycle, or breaking their generational patterns, is because they have experienced things, and they want us to go through things similarly, or feel like you have to work and do things. But a lot of situations, a lot of us, like, that's unfamiliar to people, is that a lot of these things we didn't ask for. What do I mean by that? It's like a lot of these things, like when I think about the pattern and the loop that a lot of people go through, we inherited a lot of these learned behavior patterns. This is not to blame anyone. We inherited the fact of people who did not know what it was to be financial, like they did not have financial literacy. It's not to say there wasn't there before in the generations like prior to our some of our grandparents and so forth. Yeah, a lot of them were great at what they did. A lot of them built things. I do not believe, like, oh man, that's crazy to think that, to make people and convince people that they all came from some type of slavery mentality or just dysfunctionality. No, somewhere along down in the lineage, something happened. Something was, deeper details where people, there was an imbalance. And then when you don't have balance, then you don't really have structure. And so again, when you're talking about structure, when it comes to emotions and mental and everything aligned with that, spiritually and all like that, spiritual well-being and health, all of this affects how one shows up physically. So a lot of learned behavior patterns, I'm recognizing like, wow, the restabilization or the rehabilitation, the recreating and rebuilding, recalibrating how I approach life, how through the inconveniences, through the circumstances of how a lot of our mothers, I was telling my partner the other day, I'm like, bro, these motherfuckers wasn't even ready for us, cuz. A lot of us, and then some of us repeat the same pattern. And it's not to feel guilty or shame about. We didn't know no better just like they did. I ain't even gonna hold you. I didn't know no better with certain things. I didn't know the consequences to realizing like, wow, seeing these kids now, I'm seeing a bigger picture. I'm seeing the forest from the trees. Instead of the fact that some of our not ancestors, but some of my grandmothers, great-grandparents and so forth, a lot of them present still here before they leave the earth. A lot of them only see the fucking trees, y'all. They do not see the forest. They only see that right there. They only see the trees. They don't see the forest. And a lot of us are here to bring that back into fruition. We are here to be able to see the forest from the trees. And what I mean by that is like, their selfishness is to remind us also to be selfish and selfless though. There's a balance between showing up for self and then balancing between showing up for others. That being said, this is where I'm able to recognize the fact of where imbalances is where people have disguised what it is to become self-sufficient, but yet they become self-sufficient more in the physical, but insufficient when it comes to emotional stability. Like that's, or insufficient funds when it comes to being spiritually well or spiritually in tune. There has to be a balance. The beauty of all of this is a lot of us here to restore that through our natural abilities to show up for ourselves, to be able to see the bigger picture, to most importantly, the emotional state, the mental state, the spiritual and so forth. All these things are a part of alignment to how we show up for ourselves. It's naturally going to ripple to others. I'm telling you, I've gotten so much more better at that because I'm able to now realize, like, even through still processing shit, to have less judgment on others and myself, and realize, like, damn, they going through something I know nothing about. Or most likely, I don't know their backstory to their mother and father. I don't know their experiences that they have. They're probably navigating through something that I have no idea about. So, and then when you're talking about people being diagnosed or on medication, a lot of these things affecting their weight of their neurotransmitters or their processing or whatever it is they're experiencing. So for one, this shit goes back to even being labeled ADHD, childhood development, and so forth. Then you go back to generations before us, before we arrived,
who know, I mean, some of us know details, but when you talk about post-traumatic stress, um, when you talk about not just post-traumatic stress, but prolonged grief, there's so much that I'm recognizing as I relax more and connect with, you know, how even when you don't want to know something, the divine is still reveal it to you. Like learning stuff about the well-being of my grandfather, um, other men that have transitioned, and realizing like seeing the health that they were in before they left. That highlights the fact that people didn't prioritize their well-being. And the fact, going back to the shelter experience, a lot of these structures again were implemented purposefully so that people don't prioritize their well-being emotionally, mentally, and so forth. So then you have, I don't know why I keep getting jealousy. Jealousy comes up. Jealousy can peak when it comes to the fact of, I say this a lot, where people don't even know why they're jealous. They can be jealous of someone's path or envious or, whatever it is related to that, simply because there's something that could be within them that's either unprocessed or they haven't resolved, or something unresolved, whether their mother and father who did not fulfill certain things. That's why I recognize even relationships. That's why I recognize even when I was even in that shelter experience, still being able to create no matter what was going on, still being able to show up for myself. And what that does, I've noticed this through connections with people, whether in relationships, business, and so forth. This really brings up something deep, like the insecurity within them, to where, um, again, like I say, they don't know why they feel this way. No one probably never showed them how to navigate it. So they're in things long term with someone, that they can be in something and they feel like this person has a slight advantage, or this person has an opportunity to go beyond or do something. In reality, a lot of people, again, when you're not able to see the fucking forest from the trees, you're secretly in competition with an individual and you don't know why. And again, this comes from foundations, narcissistic foundations, foundations centered around control and manipulation. So you don't even realize, like, even through the fact of absorbing and conforming to things as such, now you're confused around, because you never were taught how to show up for yourself and love yourself. Now there's confusion around how you're going to show up for this person or yourself if you don't know how to. So this is where a lot of conflict comes in, and this is where a lot of people are conflict avoidant, because when they don't know that they are or hold these insecurities, if they've been taught to avoid it, guess what's going to end up happening? They're going to continue that pattern through relationships. So I've noticed that, again, reconnecting to the shelter experience, where I still had to learn how to step into my own power and stand in it, with so much going on that had nothing to do with me. I had to realize, like, bro, I cannot control these people. I can't save these people. They're going through things that have nothing to do with me. That's very difficult for a lot of people to accept, because they've never been around or even been in environments where their mental is as strong. That's the beauty of partnership of self and other people. A lot of these different environments show me that everyone is at a certain place where this person feels like they're low, this person is peaking, or this person is something. There's still something to learn from them. I've always been affirmed, just having this knowingness around. The table's always turning. I've always seen them, and my thing is, I had to always remind myself, like, okay, when the tables turn, what are you going to do? Because sometimes we'll say we're going to do something, but then what if the divine wants you to have more compassion and empathy for yourself? That's been one of the most challenging things, to where, what if you're called to, in loving yourself, loving your enemy, or showing up for, because in reality, we all have been there, because no one's perfect in this shit, or no one has, in a way, everyone's been, through betrayal, through revenge, or through a way of Like, basically an enemy of self. When you don't have a set firm foundation of a surety of who you are and your identity, and know that through your identity you're still becoming. So there's no one set thing. Knowing is half the battle, but it's still the fact of the navigating through, like, you still remaining in your truth no matter what. So me reflecting, even in that shelter experience, that's what I recognize overall. The people who were people pleasing, the women and people who were desperate to have a connection with other women, or highlighting the fact of the immaturity or the lack of emotional stability that they probably didn't receive, so they were clinging to certain women in environments through manipulation, eventually through, I'm telling y'all, bro, it's wild when you start to observe, because I wouldn't have known this had I not known more about me, or connect to the fact of knowing people through said experience, through my own lived experiences. But the thing about all of this is that everyone has their own lived experience. And so what the fucked up thing part about it all is that we compare our lived experience, because the world has tried to convince us to compare your lived experience to this person, comparing bank accounts, unconsciously doing this shit because it's subconsciously embedded, comparing your life because you see me creating art, and then you will have someone that I don't know nothing about that'll watch, even pocket watch. And again, ego, comparison. But those who know, like, that you're divinely guided and protected, but what I'm getting at is the persistence of, can you and know how to be who you are even through whatever unfolds. I'm telling you, man, that experience there where you don't want to know things, but they have to be revealed. And then you're still asked to stay, like, to be yourself. You still have to, these processes, when it comes to you regaining the truth or love for yourself, these versions of yourself that you've neglected or abandoned and so forth, these spaces, these experiences was highlighting for me, because I was reclaiming my power from people who were disrespectful, who did not have self-respect, from people who were abusing their power, who did not know how to maintain their own power inside, or know what it was to be empowered, or even grow up in environments that were empowering. So a lot of these things, these experiences reveal different parts of ourselves to ask us, are you willing to embrace it? Are you willing to love yourself, honor who you are, the emotions, that whatever it is, through all of it? Are you willing to do that? Because I'm telling you, man, I tell myself every moment, even where I'm at currently, even creating my art, still doing it consistently, I'm not at all shocked from the outcome of knowing the rewards that I'm going to receive, because it's not just the financial reward. It's the fact of, like, when you have a vision or see the forest from the trees, you realize that your gifts, at a point in time where I felt like through even entrepreneurship, that's one thing he was mentioning, Don Tripp, in the song of encouraging words. It's like going through experiences where sometimes entrepreneurs have to file for bankruptcy, going through moments where not having no income or not having anything, and so forth, and still holding tight to the vision, because that was one thing. I forgot that sister name who would pass out those slips, and one of the things it said was like, hold tight to the vision. You are the only one. What was it saying? Like, you're the only one that's in your own way, or just hold tight to the vision because you're the only one that can see it through. And it's not that other people don't see it through. It's a simple fact of you have to be able to see it through, no matter if no one sees it. And when it's not even being close to the vision, you realize you are the envision. You are the envision. You are the vision. You embody the vision. You actually are the prophecy being fulfilled. You are the living word. You are like, how could I even put it? You are the code, bruh. Sis, anybody. You are the fucking, like, when people say they cracked the code, you are all those things. Everything and nothing at all. When I see the fact that what people were experiencing, I'm just realizing, like, I could attach myself to their situation. I could focus on what they're doing. And even in that, we learn through that. I'm like, you know what? But I still have to hold tight to the vision. Even when the ones, you can say, closest to you, because closest to you is not just family. It's even when you go through lived experiences with people. The ones closest to you still, too, could still have this mindset that can affect you if you're not willing to see the forest from the trees. There's certain things I reflect on. Me doing bigger pictures now and so forth. It's like, if I have set goals for my vision, for what it is I want to do, it's the integrity to get there. Simple things. It's like, you can want this, but then the divine will take you through certain steps to get there. You will go through lived experiences of, like, well, you say you want this, new this, or new that, and so forth. Well, I want you to go through the fact of being grateful for what you currently have. That's why the presence is so important. Be grateful for your health, your well-being. Those experiences was teaching me that shit. Like, are you still gonna live in integrity, even in the fact of, like, these people don't want to serve you stuff without meat? I still had to stand 10 toes down. I still had to be like, I'm gonna make something out of nothing. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna da. It's so many different things to where, again, getting out of your comfort zone. A part of the vision is going down the path least traveled or not traveled at all. And so a lot of those cycle breaking or generational curse breakers, such as myself, or people who are just changing the pattern and switching things up, that shit comes with losing everything only to gain it. But then, see, it's more than just gaining it, because people think about the physical first. My thing is, don't ever want you to forget is that you're gaining. What type of insight did you gain through the experience? What type of knowledge? What type of knowledge? What type of knowingness that you come into? What type of clarity? What type of awareness? Can you say you met yourself deeper? Because through anything, it's like because you're in a relationship with yourself. So it's like, even through those experiences, you're still interacting with people, developing some type of relationships. And one thing that it showed me is, like, I realized that certain people relationships, in their inability to be authentic in integrity, when it was tested or when it was teaching them to show up to be authentic, it's not that, you know how they say they fumble the bag, they fumble their own bag. Meaning, like, even through betrayals, even through upheaval, even through the uncomfortability of something they're not familiar with, whether it's an individual, a person, a place, or something, it's still asking you or asking them, how you gonna show up? Are you willing to go against the grain for certain things? Are you willing, because certain things, yeah, you go by the certain rules, but at the same time, when you're living through authenticity or coming into a sovereign state, a lot of things show you, like, hey, integrity will have you realizing, like, you know what, that's not cool, that's not right. I'm not even gonna pretend like this person, that's where that emotional empathy comes in. A lot of people don't have that. So a lot of experiences, a lot of things that happened the way it did, I'm not even shocked how the mistreatment or the being mishandled, because from a lot of it, I realized either this person is used to this, or that's what's familiar to them, familiar to their mind, familiar to their brain. Because on the more logical aspect, when you're talking about patterns, you also have to take into consideration the fact of we're dealing with people when you're talking about on the human level of things, we're dealing with people who don't know no better. Meaning, it's not that they don't know any better. They don't know what else to do. You know, it's like a child that doesn't want to change a behavior because they're so, okay, for me, for instance, I'll use this. It's just like someone who have an addiction. That's how we got to start looking at stuff like. A lot of humanity, when it comes to learned behavior patterns, like, we got to start looking at this shit as addiction. And anybody who knows addicts and so forth know the depths of, like, you got people who are addicted to traumatic experiences. That's the unhealthy attachment and bond. It's like no matter what, it's like this. No matter how much you try to pull them towards something, you realize, like, you get to a place where it's better to just do this. Because you not only free yourself, you let them go through the suffering or experience to where, how many times you want to keep going through this? And that's how energy can come. That's how I had to learn through even this situation right here where I'm at. I had to, like, I'm going to show you how to, like, it's so deep to recognize patterns, or even patterns are just a reflection of energy or a reflection of self. So it's certain things where I told myself, I have goals. I have things that I want to accomplish, and I will. Okay, I have to take the initiative. And then taking that first step and taking that initiative, even through the uncomfortability of, let's say, I may not have the finances currently, but it's on its way. I know I have it. It just because it isn't like it. How can I say this? It ain't even that I may not have. It's here. That's the delusion in life. It's already on its way. It's already showed up in my bank account, or it already showed up. And me recognizing that is the integrity through spiritual currency, knowing that you've already have everything. It was assigned to you. It was given to you before your incarnation, before your existence, before whatever it is. What is that? What is that verse? I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Like, all of those things, metaphorically speaking, spiritually and so forth, that's the Most High through whatever book, whatever it is, allowing your source, allowing you to know, like, listen, I've given you everything. Why do you think you, like, without thinking about myself, why do you think you've been drawing or doing something since you were young? Now, I'm going to give you these parents, I'm going to give you these people who, I'm going to purposely give you them, who, knowing that you got this purpose or anointing or something on your life, I'm going to purposely, intentionally, like, it sounds so fucked up, I'm going to give you a mother with abandonment wounds. I'm going to give you a father with abandonment wounds. I'm going to give you these things that we label dysfunction, which really, in the negative aspect, I tell y'all, negative and positive is just like another form of feminine and masculine, or if you want to call it all feminine, or reflection of, a duality. I want to show you that it's one and the same, or it's actually just an evolution of how I'm going to, what y'all call negative traits is not bad. It's just the fact of you're called to evolve it. You're called to master it. You're called to restore the balance. If I'm called to no longer abandon that which my mother and father abandoned within themselves, they abandon their inner child, so I need not to. So in that, am I no longer abandoning myself to people please, to look for external whatever it is? Guess in that recalibration or that rehabilitation through life, because that's all this shit is right now. Therapy. We're going through a rehabilitation. We're in this is a great title. Rehabilitation with our soul, with our inner child, with our essence, with different versions of ourselves, generationally, ancestrally, and so forth. That's all this shit is. Restoration. Rehabilitation. That's what humanity is going through. Us individually and collectively. Rehabilitation. My art is like therapy.
Where a time, those who have watched and so forth, and follow my journey, I'm at a place like I don't need to feel any guilt or shame around what I experienced, because it was my learned experience. It was my beauty of my experience. And through that, the versions of me where I wanted to feel shame and guilt, or even where things that were unprocessed or that were suppressed for so many years, I reflect. My art, like when you realize like the depths of what, it doesn't have to be art for you. It can be music, it can be anything that brings you to a place of peace, comfort, stability, stableness, and so forth. And you can find that every day in what you do. What a lot of us have been taught. Oh man, man. Your thoughts will come up around something, and then something counters that where you don't know how to counter it, so something traumatic comes up around it, and all of a sudden you just push it to the back of the line again. Push it to the back. And then now who's to blame for you repressing it more and more? No one's to blame from that. No one. Like I said, it's not supposed to make sense to everybody. I keep going because I choose to. That's why I do it. I choose to. My kids, nobody else is making me do this shit. I choose to. And when you're in alignment, it shows up. It's just going to show up through so many different things. One of my things I'm grateful for, like Facebook Marketplace, oh my gosh. There were times where I didn't even know how I was going to get the money to even get canvases. Then there was things revealed to where it's like, okay, the divine will invent so many infinite possibilities, so many possibilities to obtain things, to receive things. And again, through integrity, through confidence, through the fact of, again, rehabilitation, self-esteem. And then going at your own rhythm and pace. It don't got to make sense to nobody. A lot of those experiences, I realized like I had to be the guiding light no matter what. For myself and others. You are a guiding light no matter what you're going through. I don't care what type of position you have, wherever you are and so forth. You still, by showing up for yourself and finding that balance and then doing what you love and love what you do. And the more I start to get away from like, who's going to view it, who's going to see it, this and that, it started with me first. My appreciation for being a vessel, being, having this opportunity, having the health, having the limbs, certain things, having the body, having the mental space to create. There's so much more that goes into the fact of people just assuming. Like I said, having the confidence to step into my independence and not make no excuses. Man, I just got canvases from Facebook Marketplace, from people who were throwing canvases away. Like big canvases. Shit that they created. And it's wild because it's like they gave up on. Like I just got some canvases people handmade. Never seen no shit like that in my life. And the material that they made it into a canvas. I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh. But what it'll show you is like separation is illusion. Everything people obtain, they have not did it by themselves, bro. These transits with Pluto and Aquarius and all this stuff, there is nothing that does it like, how could I say this? It's like, even the fact of like, yes, you independently do things, but prior to how you got here, there still was something that orchestrated your inspiration or your coming into and your becoming. For me, my mother and father had to meet. My grandmother and grandfather had to meet. So many different things. And y'all got to realize these are people who are merging coming together, the beauty of that, and that's the miracle in all this shit. That's the miracle. You're a miracle. There are some of you that you know something traumatic or something that, whatever it is that was wanting to make sure your existence or your coming into or you just being here was not supposed to happen. That's what motivates me to keep going. Even when I had people to say I wasn't going to be able to do this and say this and do this and do this and do this, I was like, I look at that shit so much as inspiration. Because sometimes their focus will be around, you got to have money to do it. No, you do not. Not when you know you're the spiritual currency. I'm the spiritual currency. So that means whatever I align with, because I'm the current, will show up presently. That currently, you know, that balance between me being rooted and grounded in that earth aspect and in that currency, that current that clashes, and you know, everything always washes ashore. Everything always reveals itself from the depths. So no matter what, that's the beauty of all this shit. And when I mean washes up from the depths, it's the same thing if you think about subconsciously and even the fact of generationally and ancestrally, how we're all connected. There was something within my mother, you know, so again, my mom, she's an Aquarius, so it's so interesting where she has such a humanitarian spirit, like such a giving spirit. I had to learn how to stop being an overgiver, overcompensating. That doesn't mean, but for me, I had to evolve that feminine aspect of abandonment, mother wound, and now evolving into something holistic to where now it's like clearing karmic debts could be a part of like what I experienced through the mother wound and what I put women through to now my karmic debts. People don't realize the beauty of that is that when you pay off karmic debt or even physical debt, y'all don't realize like there is still a reward after that. You have an opportunity now to gain more. They want you to think it's just physical debt. It's spiritual debt. And some people come into your life to pay off that spiritual debt. They're very significant in your life. I'm realizing that. That's what clearing karmic debt is. I used to look at that shit like, man, why am I experiencing? Man, I started to realize like, whoa. I used to think of even meeting, you know, my partner, the mother of my children. I used to think like, gosh, why I had to go through this with this person. A lot of you can relate to that, having children by. So you're like, man, fuck. Because you can talk about, because of programming, you can talk about all the stuff that they wasn't doing, how they wasn't showing up, all the worst things. But you can also find the beauty, the counter in how grateful you are. What is this teaching me? The beauty in not staying in the dark. Because that's what the past will do for you when you don't know how to learn from it or transmute it. It will have you staying in the state of like, it will always be that way. No, it's not. That's where evolution comes in. That's what partnership with self comes into, where you realize you align with self, and then you realize like in that, because a part of that clearing karmic debt is also your karmic patterns. Your learned behavior patterns growing up. To why you said attracted this person, or even whether it's attraction or not, it's still the karmic debt that you're clearing individually and together with that person in that connection to clear the karmic debt. For some of y'all to realize, to clear the karmic debt so your fucking children don't gotta live through it. We're unpacking and unresolving karmic debts from our mothers and fathers. For some, they know past life, previous lifetimes. Y'all don't know, it's spiritually, ancestrally, it's that deep. That's why on a grander scale of a lot of leadership that you see, a lot of things dismantling and foundation, people have to pay their karmic debts. You don't outrun what y'all call racism or self-hatred. That's why a lot of these things outside of this bodysuit and skin color and shit, people are still not exempt from karma and clearing karmic debts. That's why certain people will try to re-enter your life, because some of them will come into a stage of enlightenment or come into a self-awareness. Because when the divine isolates or secludes you, and once you start learning about yourself, you clear karmic debt for yourself. You start to dive more deep into your contract spiritually, or whatever it is you're here to do. And then when you're ready to evolve, that's when you step into that integrity, how you show up for yourself. You're not just showing up for people. You got to show up for, you show up to an event, but you show up to the event. That means you got to know how to show up for you before you go there. How you going to show up on the world stage if you don't even know who the fuck you is in the backstage? So you got to realize a lot of people showing up on this world stage as performers, but they're not a star. You're the star. A lot of people were preparing. Performance. They care about more who's in the audience. If the audience claps for them, I don't give a fuck who clapped for me. And I won't teach my kids that. And I won't teach the other generations if I connect with these. Why are you worried about who clapping for you? Have you clapped for you today? Have you looked into the mirror and said, I love me? I love all the versions of me. I love what comes with me. Because I got to unpack that shit at the end of the day. I can't expect people to unpack that. Especially a person who never know how to unpack, unresolve, remove, learn through their experiences and so forth. And that's where the grace comes in. That's where initiation comes in, because a lot of you are initiated to do that. A lot of us are assigned to clear karmic debt as individuals that represent a patriarchal and matriarchal. So a lot of what you think you're experiencing, it's not in vain, boo-boo. You're clearing karmic debts. You're clearing things that your mother and father never resolved. I just talked to a sister. She said she has 7 kids. My mom automatically goes through, okay, oh yeah, my mom has 7 kids. Huh? Do y'all not realize a lot of us are reliving shit out our mothers and fathers are, but you are still here to evolve the mindset, the approach, the intention, and so forth. That's the fucking evolution of this. That's the individual and the collective consciousness of this. I don't want to manipulate anybody. You think a lot of us didn't want to live those experiences, but we had to live it to realize now our approach. You start to realize our mom and dad then was fucked up. They were mentally unstable. They were not emotionally stable. They were not healthy for themselves. How can we ignore the world that they grew up in? Look at they didn't even know how to be leaders for themselves. They allow other people to steer their lives, to drive them crazy. Literally, those in the spirit. No, when you having visions or dreams about that, they've been allowing people to drive them crazy, literally. They've been in the back seat, they've been in the passenger seat, and literally been allowing people to drive them crazy. And what they thought they was going to do is do it for us. Fuck no, you ain't. Nobody going, That's what recalibration, rehabilitation, and so forth. That's what we're going through, restoration, rehabilitation. That's what healing is. Holistically, on a deeper level. You're going through rehabilitation. Depths of yourself that you didn't even know. Cycles. It makes sense of the masterpiece I just created. Rehabilitation. I'll show y'all that before. Check on my food. Rehabilitation. Like I said, this ain't about color. This is about the different hues of women
cycles, the feminine energy, masculine energy that's rising, with the feminine, divine feminine. The full moon, the life, how we come together and create life. I got real dirt on there too. The different aspects of life, the cycles, everything happens in the cycles. Here to here, forward and backwards, past and future, all in the present. So yeah, that's all I got to share. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.